How many of us know someone who's been sexually assaulted, whether a child or adult? Many people have seen it on videos. If you've seen the R. Kelly stuff, right? I never did, but many of us have heard about it if we haven't seen it personally. I remember some years ago, one of my friends posted on social media that at her kid's school, someone had recorded a kid performing sexual acts on another kid, and they had passed it around, and the school had reported to the teachers, to the school had reported to the parents that if your kid is circulating this video, it's child porn. We see every day kids are being taken advantage of, whether it's by adults, whether it's by their kids. And we always ask one question: where were their parents? Now, this is not a conversation where I want to blame the parents, but I do want to have this conversation about what we can do to help our kids stay safe. And I wanted to have this conversation ever since 2 weeks ago when we had this last conversation about our kids being molested and raped. Our kids are very vulnerable when we're not there to protect them. And so many times there are small tweaks we can make in our lives that will help us prevent our kids from being vulnerable. I want to share with y'all some stats. I want to share with y'all some information. I want to share with y'all some of my experiences because we got to make change happen. And with Jesse Jackson passing away yesterday, I feel even more responsibility to do more for the people who are in my orbit. He did what he had to do at his time to help the next generation, and I'm so grateful. I saw all the videos about how he would have Obama could have never become president, or may not have, if it hadn't been for Jesse Jackson leading the way. Well, I feel like the proverbial torch has been passed to me, and not that I should take his place, not that I should do what he had done, but I have to do what I can do within my sphere of influence to share the messages that have been given to me to share. So here we are. I'm Kalisha Washington. I'm your parenting BFF. I help parents build and rebuild extraordinary relationships with their kids through this Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast so that we can raise kids who are happy, healthy, and whole. And listen, it's never too late. I've talked to parents that all the time who say stuff like, well, it's too late for me. I wish I had heard about this 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it is. It's never too late. You will always be building and rebuilding relationships with your kids, with your grandkids, if you have them, with people that are in your sphere of influence. Listen. So we're going to have this conversation. And what's crazy is that I think my phone just vibrated. It's on Do Not Disturb. One of the things that I want to talk about is poverty, and how poverty plays a role in how much our kids are vulnerable. I don't know a better word to say than that. We put our kids in harm's way when we stay stuck in cycles of poverty. What are you talking about, Kalisha? Well, I think about my own life, and I've shared my story many times. I will continue to share it so that hopefully somebody can learn from it, right? But my mom was working very long hours. They say that millions of Americans are working 50 plus hours a week. Millions of Americans are working more than one job just to make ends meet. And that was the life that I grew up in. My mom worked at Kaiser Permanente right there on Sunset in Hollywood, in Hollywood, California. And man, she worked as many hours as they would give her. Anytime they had extra shifts to pick up, she picked them up because she had a husband at home who was in the Army Reserve, who refused to work a regular job on top of that. So he was at home and he was running up all of the bills. He was from Belize, and he would run up the phone bill calling Belize, run up the phone bill calling family in New York, because he had time. But my mom was working hard. She was trying to make the ends meet that were not meeting. She had 4 kids at home. And then my stepdad ended up bringing his daughter from Belize to stay with her. So it's a lot of mouths to feed. So my mom is working all these hours. And what does that cause? Vulnerability. That means that it's me and him there, I'm not going to speak on anybody else's situation except mine. There were other people in the house, but it left me susceptible to sexual assault. And my mom meant well. She was never trying to hurt me. She was not trying to bring harm my way, but it's what happened. It's what happened. And she died in 1991. I didn't forgive her until 2019 for those very things that happened in my life. And it wasn't intentional on her part. She didn't set out for that to be my reality, but it was because she was living in poverty in that cycle, right? We have to do something to disrupt the cycle. We have to do something to disrupt what's been happening. People talk about generational curses, and I don't believe in generational curses. I believe in generational bad habits that we have the power to break. We have the power to do something about. If it was a curse, we wouldn't have any control. Yeah, it's easy to say, oh, generational curses and give the power away. But no, we need to take on that power because we have the power and we can do something about it if we choose to. So let's have the conversation. When we look at poverty, as a matter of fact, I'm about to pull up my notes right quick, but 1 in 6 children in the US are living in poverty. Over 11 million children are living in poverty. What does that mean? They become susceptible to forces around them who will offer an option to get them out of poverty. And I didn't even mean to talk about that, but let's talk about it. When parents are working long hours and they're doing what they can and all that they know to do, not blaming parents. I'm just saying when you know better, do better, right? But when parents are working those long hours, there's always somebody at the house who can tempt your kid. And sometimes they're tempting them with buying them gifts. And sometimes they're tempting them with giving them money. And sometimes they're tempting them with, the mentality of something great. I remember there's a lady, some of y'all may know her name. She's very popular. Stormy, I want to say Wellington is her last name. But I remember watching an interview of hers where she was talking about how she became a stripper at like 13, 14, 15. She said somebody told her like something like pull down your dress or something, let me see something, and I'm gonna give you $500. Well, what ran through her mind is I can get the lights turned on at my house if I get this money. Her first thought was like, what? No, absolutely not. But then she thought about it again, was like, man, I should have got that money. And then when he came back around and asked her again, she said yes, because she needed to get her lights turned on. Now, we've experienced some poverty in my household. We never had the lights turned off kind of poverty, right? But there are so many families who do. There's so many kids who do experience that. And what do they do as a result? And as parents and as protectors of our children, what can we do to prevent that from happening? That's the conversation I want to have. 35.9 million people in the US live below the federal poverty line. And the federal poverty line is like $30,000 a year, I think, for a family of 4. It's either 30,000 or 40,000, whatever it is not enough. For a family of 4, what are you supposed to do with that? Rent prices are going up, food prices are going up, gas prices are going up, and what are you supposed to do to survive? People have limited options. Most people think that the next thing that they can do is to go get a second job, go get a third job, right? Two jobs is for two people, three jobs is for three, right? It shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't be clocking in multiple times in a day. We're punching multiple time clocks and still not getting ahead. Because think about it, when you work that second job, most of the time you got to pay somebody to watch your kids. Who is watching your kids at that time? Because if you're working more than one job, most likely you're working past them getting out of school. You oftentimes got to pay to get from point A to point B, whether it's you have a car and you put an extra gas in your car to drive it, or people are taking Ubers from one job to the next job because they don't have a car or they hopping on a bus, whatever it is, expenses. It's not freedom. It doesn't put us in position to have freedom, right? And so family of four, 30,000 or 40,000, whichever one it is, I don't remember, but it's not sufficient. So what are we going to do about it? Hang on. I have solutions. I have solutions. But I want to talk a little bit more about this problem. Every 9 minutes, a child in the United States is sexually assaulted. Every 9 minutes. We've been on this Zoom right now on Zoom, on this live for 11 and a half minutes. So you know what that means. 1 in 4 girls, they said 1 in 13 boys experience sexual abuse before the age of 18. I would argue that it's probably higher than that, and it's not as many of them reporting it. Because I talk to men every single day. I won't say I talk to men every single day. That's an exaggeration. I've talked to a lot of men. And I've heard a lot of people telling their stories of being sexually assaulted under age 18. I've talked to guys who have had sexual encounters with their mom's friends, their auntie's friends, family members of friends of the family who are much older than them. And they may not have seen it as they were being raped, but what you think the brain is doing? How do you think the brain is processing that? And the problem is when men report sexual assault, oftentimes it's seen as not a big deal. It's seen as not a bad thing, especially when it's a woman who does it to a man or a woman who does it to a boy. How many people would slap him a high five and be like, oh, you was able to pull that grown woman? No, you were raped. You were molested. It's not okay. And so the majority of the victims of child victims know their abuser. When kids are molested and raped, 93% of them know the person who did it. That tells me a lot, and hopefully it tells you a lot. It's not necessarily the person on the street who's kidnapping them. We tell our kids about stranger danger. We tell our kids, like, look out for the strangers, don't talk to strangers, don't go near that white van. We prepare our kids for that, but do we prepare our kids for the predators that could be right up under their own roof? I've said this before, and I'm gonna always continue to share this part of my story. My grandma didn't allow me to go spend the night over my friends' houses. They could come spend the night at our house, but I couldn't go spend the night over their houses because she wanted to protect me. When my elementary school in sixth grade, we took all the graduating sixth graders, took a camping trip. I won't say all because I didn't get to go. My grandma was like, "You not going." And I was like, "Didn't my mom get to go to her camping trip?" She was like, "Nope, she didn't get to go either." My mom was like, "Nope, I didn't get to go either, and you not going." But she let me go over my mom's house where the ultimate predator was, right up under the roof. The predator sleeps in the house. If you've read books like I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings and Maya Angelou's telling her story of having been, and I don't remember who did it, but somebody she knew had raped her. And I believe it was a long time ago that I read the story, but I believe that somebody killed that man because she told and she vowed not to speak again. And I think it was years that went by before she spoke again because she felt like her voice caused him to lose his life. Well, how about we do more to prevent our kids from being in those situations in the first place? While I'm not blaming us, we do have the power to prevent that from happening. We have the power to keep our kids out of harm's way. And I remember people would say stuff. I remember hearing people talk about the R. Kelly video with the 14-year-old girl. And I remember hearing people say, I saw the video. She was a pro. She knew what she was doing. And every single time I heard somebody say that, I responded with, "You, if she was a pro, it's because somebody else took advantage of her prior to that. Somebody else had raped her. Somebody else taught her some sexual things that a 14-year-old shouldn't know." And we re-victimize the victim when we do that. I know who the victim is. And I'm so glad that this girl she's grown. I believe she has children now. And now she's coming out and telling her story. I wish I had looked it up to see. I watched one of the videos, but I wish I had prepared better to share that story today. But that's huge. And I was watching a video today. It was streamed live on YouTube. So I thought it was live today. It wasn't. It was live from a while back. But it was Mark Zuckerberg. And I think he did testify again today. But when they were replaying was from previous. They were talking about how all these predators are on social media. He was testifying in front of the Senate. And they were saying, there are pop-ups that come up on Facebook and Instagram that say this you may be about to view like child sexual images of children or something like that. There's a disclaimer that pops up for you to be able to click off of it, but it also has where you can click to say view it anyway. And they were arguing about like why do you even have that as an option for them to view it anyway? And of course, sometimes they get it wrong, but I'd rather you get it wrong by blocking a picture that didn't have to be blocked than for you to expose pictures that need to be blocked. But it also goes right back to us because as parents, how we monitoring what our kids are looking at online, how we monitoring what they're doing online. I remember when I was principal, I had a parent who came in my office to talk to me with her kid, and they're crying. And the little girl is walking across campus. She done took a picture of her boobs, sent it to this guy. He done sent it to other people at the school. It's all around the school. She's walking down the hallway, and people are showing her boobs. They got their phone talking about, these your boobs? What? She had to tell her mom eventually because she couldn't take it anymore with kids all coming up to her. These your boobs? What do you say? Mom's working hard, trying to take care of her kids, trying to provide for her family. And her daughter is at home taking pictures of her nude boobs. Now I'm in the office. Now I got to circulate and try to find out who all has these pictures on their phones so I can delete them. We have to do better. We have a responsibility to do better, right? And we're not trying to harm our kids, but if we don't do everything in our power to protect them, we are negligent. We are harming our kids. So look at those devices. Look at the devices. Look through their phones. Look through their computers. Look through their tablets. No doors closed. What are we doing? We want kids to have privacy. Well, what does that privacy lead to? It can lead to kids harming themselves. It can lead to kids being lured off. Listen, I saw online somewhere, there was a couple of sisters, 12 and 14. They were in Florida. They ended up meeting Some grown man, he was 19, but grown man in Nebraska. He ends up getting in this car, driving all the way to Florida to get these girls, and they catch him in Georgia. But what if he had gotten all the way to Nebraska with these babies? What was he planning to do? These kids got lured out of their houses. They had given this man their address. Nobody had looked into their phones. And guess what? He'd been sending them gifts ahead of time. What? Listen, in my last episode of the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast, I interviewed Larissa Roan. And I remember her saying, you need to see if your kids start coming up with gifts, you need to investigate that. And I was like, gifts? Nobody gave me gifts. This dude is sending gifts to this 12 and 14-year-old set of sisters. And now here they are in the car with this strange man and driving across country. What? And their parents didn't know? There's a disconnect. And our kids are paying the price for the disconnect. What can we do? We have to find more time because poverty is an issue. There is definitely a direct correlation between poverty and kids being molested and raped. That's not the only indicator, but there is an indicator. When you have parents who make good money, they make six figures. Many a times, their bosses demand a whole lot more of them. Their parents their bosses require them to work late. Their bosses have an expectation that they're going to show up. I have a friend who's a nurse and somebody calls in sick. There's nobody else to cover. Guess what she got to do? Get up and go cover. When you're salaried and you make the six figures of income, there's a much higher demand on your time. And time is the one thing you can never get back. And I remember when I was principal and I made six figures and I was in the Bay Area and I was getting to work at about 7 o'clock in the morning and staying there till 7 o'clock at night. I wasn't getting paid any extra, but in order to get the job done, I had to be there. I was working through, we didn't hardly even have vacations scheduled for us. We had in our schedule like Christmas Day, Christmas Eve off, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day off. We didn't have the 2 weeks off for Christmas break. Because you're the principal. You got to make it happen. I had to be there to prepare the training that was going to happen when the teachers came back. Somebody had to be at the school when new people were enrolling and other people were disenrolling. Somebody had to be there. Guess who had to be there? Now, I wasn't the only one who had to be there. My office manager had to be there. But guess what? I had to be there. So time is the issue. Whether it's because you're poor and you're working extra hours to get more money and therefore you don't have any time, or you have a good paying job and they're demanding more on your time, time is the issue. Because you have to have time to be able to see what's going on in your kids' lives. When that behavior changes, oftentimes something triggered that. It doesn't just naturally happen because the kid turned 12 or the kid turned 13. But you got to be there to see the changes happening in your kids. You got to be there to see their personalities changing. I saw it when I was a teacher. I saw it when I was a principal. And unfortunately, I didn't see it as a parent because I was working. Because I was working more than one job. Even when I was a teacher, I was tutoring after school. I was proctoring ACT exams on the weekends. I was teaching summer school every summer, trying to make ends meet. So I wasn't there when my kids were growing up. I wasn't there to see their behavior change. Although I got to experience it changing, but I didn't get to be there to see it happen and to know something might be going on with my kid. It wasn't until my daughter was 17, my son was 18, he stayed in LA and I moved to Sacramento. And my daughter moved to Sacramento with me. And then it was just me and her. Then I got to have eyes on her all day, every day, because it was just me and her. And we were at the same place. When I went to work, she was at school, at my school. My first period, she was in my first period grading papers for me. And I'm not saying you got to have that type of relationship with your kids, but that's when I really got to spend the time with her, to know every move, every change in behavior, I could notice it because I was there. So even when she was at school, she's coming to by my classroom all the time. And I was a super popular teacher, as you can imagine, right? So everybody knew me. Therefore, everybody knew her. So she didn't get away with anything at that point, although she tried. But I'm not just saying this because I did everything right. I started the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast because I did a lot wrong and I learned a lot. And it would be a shame for me to keep that all to myself. It would be a shame for me to hide the things that I did wrong as a parent that I know. And that's why I've had those conversations with my kids. That's why I've talked to my daughter about it, because she has kids. I've talked to my son about it because if he ever has kids, I want them to know the things I did well and the things I didn't do well. I don't want them repeating those patterns. I got to make sure that I do everything in my power to help them make better choices when they are parents. And I'm going to be that example for my grandkids. I get to be that example for them. While I was punching multiple time clocks with my children, I made a decision not to do that same thing with my grandkids, which is why I started my travel business. It's not why I started, but it's why I accelerated with my travel business, which is why I went from just getting discounts and commissions on my travel to really building a team of travel agents so I could take this money, scale, and go to the next level. I was like, I got to do something different. You cannot do the same thing over and over again and expect to get a different result. I'm not going to allow my grandkids time to just pass me by and I'm punching a time clock and they're over here living life. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. I did what I had to do at the time that I had to do it, but when you know better, you do better, and I'm going to do better, and I'm going to help as many parents as I can do better as well. I only tell you the things that I wish I had somebody to tell me. It wasn't until my kids were in high school when I took some child development classes that I learned a lot, and it all made sense. I became a teacher when my kids were in middle school, and I learned so much at that time as well. I did an episode a few weeks ago about not whooping your kids, right? And that came out of me becoming a teacher and being able to see if I can get the kids at school to do what I need them to do without whooping them, I can get my kids, my children, who I gave birth to do what I need them to do without whooping them. But there's so much more because I started learning more about the kids who were in my classes. And I remember talking to somebody recently, and I light up when I talk about teaching because I loved it. I loved being an administrator. And they're like, why don't you go back? That's always the answer. Why don't you go back? Absolutely not. I'm going to take all of the things that I've learned over 13 years as an educator and pour it into my family. And they were like, seems like you were such a good educator. I said I was, but I didn't want to sacrifice my kids for the benefit of other people's kids. But that is what I did. And it wasn't on purpose, but it's what happened. And so now, as we get to the opportunity to do better, we have to do better. You know, research shows that family income significantly increases the risk of child sexual assault. But I messed that up. Research shows that as family income significantly increases, the risk of child sexual assault decreases. So there's that direct correlation. As your income goes up, the risk involved with your kids being sexually assaulted goes down. When we look at those files, I don't even want to say the name because I don't even know if it's going to block whatever I've posted. I'm not saying no names. There's some documentation, some footage, some videos, some pictures, some all kinds of things that have been given to the public through the government, right? And I remember watching a documentary about that person and his accomplice, the female accomplice. And they were saying that she would go and specifically target low income kids. She would go and intentionally target poor kids. Because when she would say to them, I need you to come give this man a massage for $200. Are those kids thinking about, I, my stomach is growling right now? Yes, I'll go give him a massage for $200. The lights are cut off. Yes, I'll go give him a massage for this $200. And how come the parents didn't notice their kids were missing? Now, that's one of the few things I did right. We always had somebody at home to receive my children. They didn't have a key to the house. They were not coming. They were not latchkey kids. They didn't go. I wasn't gone to work and I come home and they're at home already. We weren't doing that. My grandma was there. My dad was there while he was alive. Then my brothers were there. Somebody was there to receive my kids. So if they didn't show up at a certain time, the alarms sound. My kids got their first cell phone in third grade, second and third, because they were going to take the school bus at that time. And there were times when the school bus is running late. Now, it only took one time of that school bus running late, and we were waiting to pick them up. And we're like, what in the world is going on? And I don't know because my kids don't have a cell phone immediately when it got them a cell phone. And of course, this is the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. And wouldn't you know, my son went and downloaded a whole bunch of games that I had to pay for. T-Mobile took care of it, but that's another story. I took that phone out of his hand and put it in my daughter's hand. She still has that same phone number to this day from second grade. But the key is we have to make sure that our kids are protected. And we can't do that if we're not there. We can't do it if we're not around. We can't do it if we don't have those open and honest conversations with them. And we have to make sure our kids feel comfortable talking to us. If they feel like they're going to get in trouble by having the conversation with us, if you've instilled fear in your kids their whole lives, how do you think they're going to have those honest conversations with you? If you don't have open and honest conversations with your kids from the beginning to where they feel safe talking to you about anything, they won't be talking to you about anything. And it's dire. The situation is dire. We have to make sure our kids are open enough to talk to us about anything. And we can't shy away from whatever it is they have to say. And we have to believe them. We have to believe them. Listen, I would rather err on the side of I'm taking my kid's side if my kid says they've been touched inappropriately. I'd rather take their side than to take some man's side who happens to be living in my house or happens to be I'm in a relationship with them. No, I'm not taking their side. They can get mad all they want to. They can leave if they want to. I'm going to let the police figure this out. I'm not qualified to do the investigation. I'm going to trust my kid. And first, if we raise our kids right, we don't have to worry about them lying about something like this. You know, I have a cousin, and I remember when she was getting married, she already had two kids who were teenagers at the time. And it was the night before the wedding. And we were shopping. We were at Kmart trying to get a certain color tie to go with his outfit. And there was something else we were getting, same color scheme. And I had no idea that these kids didn't know that their mom was getting married the next day. And they're like, why are you buying the tie? I said, oh, I'm getting it for him. Like, for what? Well, like, is my mama marrying him? Is my mama marrying him? And they kept asking me, and I was like, I don't have any answers for you. I plead the fifth, you know. And but that's an example of not having that open communication. And those kids didn't even feel comfortable asking their mom, "Hey, are you getting married tomorrow?" I'm talking, we're within 24 hours of the wedding, not having that open communication. So, what happens when we don't have that open communication with kids? They don't feel comfortable talking to you about anything. And especially if they know you're going to fly off the deep end, or you're going to get emotional, or you're going to start yelling, or whatever your response is, they don't want to deal with it. So, start now. And listen, if you messed it up already, it's okay. We've all messed up something. No parent is perfect. But can you go have that open, honest conversation with your kids and say, you know what, I haven't been the most open and easy to communicate with person. I haven't been. And I'm sorry for that. And will you please forgive me for that? And going forward, this is how I want to show up. I want to open these lines of communication. I want you to feel free to talk to me about anything that you're going through. I want you to feel free to come and talk to me about anything that may have gone wrong. And we can test it out, because let a school call somebody's house, and people all over social media drives me crazy, because people want to brag about how brutal they are towards their kids, right? That school better not call my house. And you don't even hear the kid out before you start with discipline, and sometimes with abuse, because the school called your house. Because more important about your reputation than you listening to your kid and having a real conversation with them. I'm an educator. I can tell you sometimes these educators have it out for your kid. I have seen it. I've seen it both as a teacher, I've seen it as a principal. Listen, I know some of these teachers have it out for your kid, and they want nothing more than to see your kid get in trouble. And they're going to magnify whatever the problem is until they hit your breaking point and you go off on them in the school. And I remember telling my daughter, I remember telling my friends, I'm like, listen, don't ever go off on your kid in front of the teacher, in front of the school. Not because you're afraid of them reporting it, but first of all, you shouldn't be going off. That shouldn't be the word anyway. But even when you are going to discipline, you have that conversation in private, because now you open up communication with your kid. When you embarrass them in front of everybody, you shut down that communication. Now I'm way off topic, but I'm going to share one more story. I remember when my son was a senior in high school, and he had failed Spanish 3, which those of y'all who are in California, you know it is not required. But his school gave it to him. He was supposed to get it taken. He wanted to get dropped the class. There was a form he had to have filled out, take it to all these people, give it to your mom, have her sign it so you can get dropped out of the class. He didn't do it. So he failed the whole year. They never dropped him out of the class. He failed the whole year. And they had in the stipulation in the handbook that we signed in the beginning of the year that if the kids, there were all these stipulations in order for them to participate in the graduation at the end of the year, in order for them to go to prom, in order for them to do the senior trip, grad night, all of those things. And so the school, and it was like 95% attendance required. Most of the kids did not have 95% of attendance. They dropped that requirement. There were other things that kids, you had to, I don't know, there were other activities and stuff kids had to do. They had dropped all the requirements. But now they want to hold my son to not walking across the stage because he had that one fail on his report card in Spanish 3, which was not required. I said to myself and to my friends, I said, either he gonna be walking across that stage in that baby blue cap and gown, or I'm gonna be walking across that stage in that baby blue cap and gown. But one of us is gonna be walking across that stage in that baby blue cap and gown. And then when I got to the office to talk to the principal and talk to the assistant principals, the dean, or whoever it was that was there to talk to me, it was me, my son in the office. My son gets to state his case. And My son states his case, and then they state their case. They're asking them questions back and forth, like, "Did you do this form? Did you know you need to do this form? Did you do da 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 da?" He didn't. And so then they're like, I said, "Step outside, Dion," because I wasn't going to embarrass them in front of him, and but I was about to read them their rights. Okay, professionally, of course. And I said, "I understand what you're saying. But let's go down this list," because they were like, "Here's the form that you signed where you agreed to this in the beginning of the year." I said, "Okay, great." I said, "You see all these stipulations? Y'all relaxed on all these stipulations." I said, "And y'all let him go to grad night." They were like, "Did he go to the prom?" I said, "He didn't go to the prom because he didn't want to go to the prom, not because y'all said he couldn't." He went to grad night. He went to all the activities that he wanted to go to. They had during CST's California Standardized Test, during that time, the seniors had something else to do. He got to do the things that they did, the picnics and all of that. I said, and so now that there's nothing left for him to do except walk across the stage, you want to take that from him? But y'all could have taken the prom. It would have taught him that, oh, I got to get this stuff done. Y'all didn't. And now y'all didn't hold him to any of these other standards, but y'all want to hold him to this one standard. It's unfair and it's inconsistent. So they agreed and they went ahead, called him back in. They had me step out so they could talk amongst themselves. And then they called us back in and they said, "Okay, we're going to go ahead and let him walk across the stage." But one thing I wasn't going to do was rip into him in front of them. Because in my heart, I'm like, "Dion, how come you didn't do the stuff that they told you to do?" Right? But I also wasn't going to embarrass them in front of him because then that breaks the respect level. Right. And they probably won't say he can't walk across the stage. And then I was going to have to walk across that stage in that baby blue cap and gown, and I didn't want to do it. But, anyways, we have to protect our kids. We have to set a foundation for them to be able to communicate with us. Now, when my son had that example of me being able to communicate with him respectfully and still get what I needed, communicate with the school staff respectfully and still get what I needed, what lesson did that teach him? That you don't have to yell and holler, that you can have open communication, and that you can still get your point across. And that's what we need to do for our kids. But guess what? If we don't have time, we're not doing any of that. When we're working those long hours, we don't have the patience to come home and have a conversation. We're yelling and screaming at our kids. Told you to put your shoes up, whatever the situation is. We got to do better because our kids' lives are dependent on it. And if we don't fix it now for the next generation, who's going to fix it? If not you, who? If not now, when? Are we going to wait till our great grandkids are facing the same situation before we do something? So I told you I'll have a solution, and I do. And it may not be the solution for everybody. It's most likely not the solution for everybody. But I do want to take a moment to share with you my experience having a home-based travel business. What it has allowed me to do. I got started in the travel industry in 2018. It was October 2018. My best friend called me and said, "Kalisha, you can get some discounts and commissions booking your own travel. I already love to travel. I had already been to multiple countries and I loved it. I was hooked." So much so that I had 2 jobs at the airlines and 1 at a travel agency, even prior to all of that. So I love to travel. When I found out I could make some money traveling, I said, "Count me in." I was assistant principal at a performing arts high school at the time. My time was very limited. My kids were grown at this time and out of the house. But when I found out that I could have my own home-based travel business, I said, "Sign me up." And then when I actually saw the full presentation about what the business was about, I was like, wait a minute, it's a whole lot of money to be made. Why? Because everybody's traveling. Most people can use some discounts and commissions. If you're anything like me, you've gone from website to website looking for the cheapest price, right? If not, you probably trusted somebody else to go ahead and book your trip for you and you just paid them the money. Either way, there's benefits here. Now, it's not about travel. Let me be clear. It's not, but it is about time. Because I think about all the times that I was tutoring after school every single day of the week. They would allow us to tutor 1 hour for $16, Monday through Thursday. So at the end of the week, you ain't even make an extra $100. But I think about all the times I sat on the edge of my bed, booked a trip for somebody, and made hundreds of dollars and made thousands of dollars sitting on the edge of my bed, booking a trip. And I could only wish I had had something like this when my kids were little because I didn't. And I didn't have time and I didn't have money. And when summer vacation rolled around, we didn't have a vacation. We were just at home. Well, they were at home. I was working. I remember having two jobs when my first year as a teacher, I worked two jobs that summer. While my kids are at home, again, vulnerable with somebody else. And just to keep tying this back together, the issue is even when your kids are with the other parent, you don't even know who they have around your kids. You don't have any control over who they have around your kids. And if they don't feel comfortable having that conversation with you about who they were around and what those people might have done, listen, it's problems, right? But when I was working, I was tutoring, I was proctoring ACT exams on the weekends, and I was grateful for a way to make some additional money, but I wish I'd had the time. But when I got started in this business, a month later, I went to Costa Rica for my birthday. A month after that, I took my daughter to London when she graduated college, and we got to build on that relationship. She was pregnant with my grandson at the time. And so that next spring, she was like, Mom, will you move to Vegas and help me with the baby? She was maybe a month or two pregnant when we went to, let me see, he was born in July. So I don't know, do the math. December, when we went on that trip, she was probably 2 months pregnant. July, August, September, October. Yeah, she was like 2 months pregnant, throwing up all on the plane international. But I had a business that allowed me to be able to book a trip, earn a check, get the best prices, have access to more pricing than just what you see online. Of course, you always have the public prices, but you also have the travel agent, you know, suppliers and vendors. So I was able to take my daughter, spend that time with her, build more on our relationship to the point that she asked me to come and move to Vegas, which is why I live in Henderson, Nevada now. So not only did this travel business allow me to make some additional money, have some time to spend with my kids. I mean, albeit they were grown at the time, but it allowed me to be able to do that. And I wish I'd had this opportunity when my kids were little because I could have booked one trip. And those teachers that had money, oh, they were traveling, especially those Teach for America teachers who were single with no kids. They were taking trips every vacation. They were going somewhere for spring break. They were going somewhere if you had a 3-day weekend. They were traveling to go watch their college football team play. Like they took the trips. If I had had a travel business at that time, I'd have been cleaning up and they would have never seen me at summer school. One of the ladies in my company, she's a director also. And I remember her um, walking across the playground. She was telling the story. She walked across the playground with her principal, and her principal was like, "You work in summer school this summer, right?" She was like, "No." She was like, "Well, I know you need the money." She was like, "As a matter of fact, I don't." How would you like to have it where your boss is offering you overtime and you don't have to take it because you have extra money because you have a home-based travel business? Now, listen, I want y'all to go. I put together a little something for y'all to see. It's don'tbeabsent.com. If you go to don'tbeabsent.com, don't put that apostrophe in there, but don'tbeabsent.com, because as parents, we need to not be absent from our kids. We need to be right there in their faces. We need to have the time and money at the same time to be right up in their faces at all times. So if something is going on with them, we see it. If something has changed in their lives, we see it. If something has changed in their behavior and their personality, we see it. And we can do something about it ASAP. But if your kids are asleep when you get up, they sleep when you get up to go to work in the morning, and they sleep when you get home from work because you don't work 2 shifts, we put our kids at a disadvantage. We make our kids vulnerable. If we're working 2 jobs or we have that job that's very demanding of our time and we don't have, listen, working 50 weeks and getting 2 weeks off is a bad deal. I don't care how you slice that. One of my friends who I'm kind of like a semi mentor for, when she got into leadership, every time, every job she's had, I'm like asking for more time off. And she does. And sometimes they give it to her. I'm like, ask for 4 weeks off. Okay. We're not doing 2 weeks off. You have a very demanding job. We're not doing 2 weeks off. We're not working 50 and getting 2 back. You're working 2,000 hours minimum. If you do 40 hours a week, that's 2,000 hours of work in exchange for what, 80 hours off? It's not enough. It's not enough. So we got to do better. And if you had the extra money, you could tell your boss, listen, I'm going to take the extra week off without pay because I got money. But we got to get ourselves in position to be able to do that. And for those who have demanding jobs and don't want to have that kind of demand on their lives, there are options. And I'm not telling anybody to quit their job. I didn't quit mine. When I first got started, I still worked a full-time job and worked this business part-time. And most 90 plus percent of the people in our business do it part-time. Because how long does it take you to book a trip for somebody? One of the ladies who's on my team, I didn't bring her in. Somebody else on my team brought her in, but she texted me yesterday. Let me see if I can quickly pull up that text message because I got really excited about this, because this is the power of what's possible in our business. So, where is it? Here it is. So she texted me a screenshot of the price of her trip. And she said, I wanted to share. I just booked me, my mom, and my daughter on our Europe trip through one of our vendors, 3 people, 5 countries, 17 days for only 9K. She said, thanks for all of the tips you shared. And she sent me a screenshot of the trip that she booked. And then I said, yay. And I said, click right there and see what the commission is. So then she sent me a screenshot of that. It's over $900 in commission. And she sent me this gift. Is it called GIF? I don't know, with the guy doing this. Yeah. And she was like, this is awesome. And I sent her a voice text. And I'm like, and make sure you document all your expenses on this business trip that y'all are taking, because there are business benefits to having a home-based business. But you see that quality time she gets to take with her family. 17 days with her, her mom, and her daughter, 3 generations. None of us are going to live forever. Will we be able to say that we lived our best life now? Can we be able to say we've built strong relationships with the people that we care about the most? My mom couldn't have said that because she died at 39 and I was 15. And my biggest memory of her was clocking in at a job. The quality time that we spent was me going with her to pick up her check from her job. I want better. I want you to want better. And a lot of my friends who may be watching this, most of us, our kids are grown. Very few of us still have little ones, right? Thinking about 2 days from now, one of my friends got some babies that's turning 12. Oh my God, time is flying with them. But don't let that time pass you by and you haven't done all the things with your kids that you wanted to do. Don't let it be you, anybody in your circle on their deathbed, and the regret is you didn't spend enough time with them. We're always going to wish that we had more time, but you got to know that you left it all on the field. You got to know in your heart that you did everything possible. And right now, what I'm asking you to do is be open-minded enough to check out the information at don'tbeabsent.com. I'm not asking you to join my team, although I would love to have you. All I'm saying is be open-minded enough for an opportunity. Every single one of us has probably heard that joke. I don't know if it was a joke, but where there's a guy, he's on the roof and there's been a flood and he's praying to God, and somebody comes by on a boat and he's like, "Oh no, God's going to help me. God's going to save me." And then the boat goes away, and then somebody comes on a helicopter and he's like, "Oh no, God's going to save me." And whatever, he dies. It was like 3 times. I don't remember what the third one was. And then the guy dies. He goes to heaven. He's like, "God, I thought you were going to save me." He's like, "I sent you a boat and I sent you the helicopter and I sent you the other thing or whatever, and you didn't take it." And I'm not saying I'm God. Trust me, I'm not saying that before folks get all in these comments acting crazy, right? All I'm saying is this may be the opportunity you've been looking for. It's a reason why you're watching this today. It's a reason why you end up clicking on this video today. It's a reason why I end up broadcasting this today. And it's serious. If we can get our kids, if we can get our grandkids, if we can get our nieces and nephews and cousins out of harm's way, we have a responsibility to do so. And I don't know about you, but I feel that responsibility even more heavy on my heart, because there's a lot going on in this country right now that's not good for kids. That's harmful for kids. And if I don't sound the alarm, who will? If I don't do everything I can to impress upon everyone's heart who has the opportunity to see my videos, to do better with our kids, to do better with our grandkids, to give the future generations our very best. And we're leaving nothing behind. We're leaving nothing on the court. We're taking it all. We are running through the tape. We are running through the tape to make sure that the next generations get better than we had. And it's not about material items. It's not about being able to buy them stuff. It's about being able to spend that time with them. It's about being able to know them. I remember there were times when I wondered if my daughter was telling me a lie, but I didn't know her well enough to know. I didn't know her mannerisms well enough to know if she was lying or telling the truth, because I've been working so hard. And good intentions, but it doesn't matter what the intentions are. It matters what the outcome is. I remember having so many conversations with friends, and I'm like, my biggest regret is that I wasn't there with my children. And I was working and I was going to school and I was at church. And they were like, "You weren't out clubbing, you weren't out partying." I wasn't, but I still wasn't present. I was absent. I was trying to make a better life for them, but what they really needed was my time. And now that I know it, oh, you better believe these grandbabies are going to be all up in each other's business. As soon as they see me, so if I call my daughter right now and her kids see her answer her phone, they're going to say, "Hi, baby." Because we're building and rebuilding relationships. And parents, I'm going to say this, I'm going to end on this note, because we have a responsibility to take the reins. We got to lead in this aspect because far too often I hear parents, especially parents of grown kids, saying stuff like, well, they didn't call me. No. There was an article I was reading. I was going to do a short video about it, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it right now. But there was this guy. I'll probably still do the short. But anyway, there was this guy he has three grown kids. And he was like, I'm going to see how long it takes them to call me. I'm not going to call them. And he said the first week he was missing them. But he was like, I'm not going to call them. And usually on Sunday afternoons, he would call them. So he was like, it's Sunday afternoon. I missed them, but I'm not going to call them. Some of them had kids. He was like, I'm not going to call them. And then eventually one of the grandkids called him and was like, no, texted him and was like, Grandpa, you mad at us? How come we haven't heard from you? He was like, no, I'm not mad at anything. He's like, oh, now I got this epiphany. It's impacting my grandkids. Light bulb. Of course, it's going to impact your grandkids. Is it worth it for you to prove a point? And he's like, and then I noticed that, they're doing the updates on social media about all the stuff that's going on in their lives. And yeah, I see it, but they're not picking up the phone to call me and talk to me about it. And he all in his feelings. And then the middle child finally called him after 11 weeks, almost 3 months. The middle child called him and they're like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, he told them he was waiting for, they never call him. He's always the first one to pick up the phone and call them. They don't call him, and crying like a little. So anyways, it turns out that at the end of it, all the kids were like, oh, we thought you were just out living your life, enjoying life, and that you were busy. The reason why you didn't call us when you always call us on Sundays. Oh, big misunderstanding. But I'm like, also just pick up the phone and call your kid. Quit playing games. If we were in a relationship with another person, we would say, why are you playing games? But now we're talking about our children and we playing games. This guy is old enough to have grandchildren and he's still playing games. What? And he was like something about there comes exhaustion with being the first person to initiate conversations and relationships. And it's the craziest thing to me. But I had a friend who did that to me. I ain't gonna name her name, but I remember her saying, I noticed that you never call me, I always call you. And I was like, that's weird. I'm like, but I answer the phone. And then she got offended because I said that. Because I'm like, I could just send you the voicemail if I didn't want to talk to you, but at least I answer the phone. And like, why are you even keeping track? Why are you keeping track of who called whom first? Why are you keeping track? If you want to talk to somebody, talk to them. If you miss them, tell them you miss them. Because there's going to be a day where you won't have them to tell that you miss them. So tell them now. If it's true. And so it was like probably years that I didn't hear from her again. And I thought about her one day, and guess what I did? Called her. Called her. I looked at my phone. I was like, when was the last time I talked to this person? It's been 3 years. I'm like, oh, but let me call her. Because she's on my mind now. If I was on your mind, you should have called me. But we play games. So it's time out for playing games. It's time out for being absent from our kids' lives. It's time out for not giving our best to our children, our grandchildren, our cousins, our nieces, our nephews. Everybody in our orbit needs to have that relationship with us because when something bad is happening to somebody, we need to know so that we can change some things up. Because I hear too often of people being put in situations where they're being molested by somebody and that person is right there and they're there long term. And they're there long term. But if it happened one time and you got rid of that person out of your life, how different would it be? So we owe it to our kids. We owe it to our future, our heirs, to do better. And for most of us, it's going to start with how we make our money, how much time we spend making our money, and the time we spend when we have it. So I encourage you, go to don'tbeabsent.com. Don't put that apostrophe in there, don'tbeabsent.com. Take a look at some information, and let's see if there's an opportunity for you to free up your time so that you can spend the time with the people that you love the most. Because we all got 24 hours in a day, but how are you spending yours? Thank you for taking this time to watch the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast. I am your host, Kalisha Washington, your parenting BFF, and I am here to help ordinary parents build extraordinary relationships with their kids, build and rebuild extraordinary relationships with their kids so that we can all live lives that are happy. We can all raise kids who are happy, healthy, and whole. And I'm going to say that one more time because I don't like the way that ended. I'm Kalisha Washington. I'm your parenting BFF. I, through my Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast, I help parents build and rebuild extraordinary relationships with their kids so that we can raise kids who are happy, healthy, and whole. Have a great day.